Hi, hello and welcome. Well, we've all seen it before. Sometimes even very good student, excellent students, sometimes even they underachieve or fail exams. Now, how can that be? Well, I've come up with 5 points here that tries to explain this, and if you're also one of those affected students, well then I hope that this video will help you. Well, the first reason why sometimes students underachieve, and now you gotta hear me out, is because of pride. Now, very good students know that they're very good. Their teachers know that they're very good. The parents know that, and of course also their peers. So there's a certain expectation that they have, that this environment has of them. And if they now indeed have a problem understanding a certain concept, then often it can happen that they're simply not going to ask, because asking would impact on their very identity. And so this can happen now that sometimes students end up going off into completely wrong direction, and they end up losing a lot of points. And I want to give you an example of this because this happened a few years ago. I got a telephone call from one of my students who almost failed a term paper. He had to write a large essay and he almost failed it, but otherwise he was an excellent student. And I said, well, just send me the paper, I'll have a look at it. I did not supervise him, so I did not know anything about this essay. But I very quickly realized what the problem was, and I rang him up again and said, well, you can be quite lucky that you even passed, because I probably would have failed you. He was very surprised about that, and the reason is the following: he completely missed the topic that he was supposed to write about. So this basically could have been easily avoided. I then asked the student, well, why did you not simply read the guidelines? And he says, well, I didn't think it was important. I did not read the guidelines. So this shows that there was a certain overconfidence in himself, and therefore he almost ended up failing the essay. Yeah, there is also another reason why sometimes very good students do not achieve the points or the marks that they hope to achieve, and the reason is because sometimes they do not understand that there is a difference between understanding a concept, understanding an idea, and also being able to regenerate these ideas in a test situation. I'll explain what I mean here. It's like this, that specifically in subjects like in the natural sciences, mathematics, you have to grasp a concept first in order to be able to apply it. And sometimes very good students are very quick in grasping the concept. They understand it, they can integrate it very quickly into their cognitive network. They might also be able to apply it, but they have a problem actually in formulating out the idea on paper. I give you an example. We've spent many hours and many lessons talking about cell respiration and photosynthesis in my biology class. 6 hours, 10 hours, in very much detail. And some students understand it very well, but if I ask them now, okay, can you summarize the whole idea now in 3 lines? All of the 8 lessons, can you summarize them in 3 lines? Then of course they have a problem, because this is exactly something that they have not prepared. Because they know all of the details, they know all of the specifics, they know all of the whole process, and they are able to even apply it, but they have a problem summarizing the ideas and the key facts in a couple of lines. So what do I recommend therefore is, it's not enough simply to understand a concept, but you also have to sit down and study definitions, summaries, and the like, so that it's in a test situation it's easier for you to regenerate this information directly from memory. Yeah, another thing, often very good students think that simply knowing enough and applying the knowledge that they have is enough to write a good test score. But the problem, as so often, the examiner does not know what the student knows. The examiner only knows what the student wrote down on the examination. And more often than not, the handwriting of the student is so illegible that it's impossible for the examiner to decipher what the student actually wrote. And there have been many students who unnecessarily lost a lot of points. A few years ago, there were two students that really wanted to get a very high grade in my lesson, and because they wanted to apply to a top university, and I told them right in their face, you're not going to get a very high grade. And they were very surprised and said, but we know everything, we know more than the rest of the class. And I says, yeah, but that's not the only thing. Nobody's able to read your handwriting. Okay, that is the problem ultimately. Very good students sometimes are focused so much on the knowledge that they have that they completely ignore that knowledge is only one aspect. You also have to be able to communicate this knowledge to the examiner, and the way of communication is to have a clear and structured answer on your essay. So practice writing nicely, practice your handwriting, and also practice writing in a structured way so that the person who reads your answer is also able to follow your thoughts. Yes, and some people like to get caught up in details. Often during my lessons, some very good students, what they wanted to know the concept until the very last detail. I explained it to them and they kept on asking questions because they still felt that they have not fully grasped the concept, and they got bogged down in what I think is unnecessary details, and at the cost of the big picture. So good students sometimes end up, I wouldn't say waste, but end up spending a lot of time studying and grasping concepts that are actually not really necessary for the exam situation. I've also had the other extreme. I've also had other students who did not understand what I was talking about. They told me afterwards, but they simply memorized what I taught during the lesson, but they had a real big problem grasping the concept, and they ended up getting good results. I know this is not the way it should be, but that's also one of the ways how some people are able to manage to get good test results, even though they probably know less, is simply because they memorize the things. So what my proposal is you need some kind of a combination of both understanding and the memorization of facts, and do not lose too much unnecessary time on details that are not relevant for an examination situation. It's much better to use the time to study the things that you have not covered yet than to go into too much depth in a detailed part of the chapter which is not relevant. Yes, and finally, another reason, and this can happen, or this has already happened before, when there is a change in educational institution. So there were some students who got very good results during the high school. They graduated from high school with a very good grade point average, and then all of a sudden they go to university and their grade point average drops massively. And they're totally frustrated because they don't know what's going on. They were the best in their class, and all of a sudden at university, grades drop. What happened? Well, as a matter of fact, some time ago they've done a study on this because they were kind of surprised that students who got very high results during the high school time all of a sudden underachieved at the university entrance examination. And what they found out was the following, is that the high school does not only award high grades or marks for a good test and examination results, but also for other factors like class participation, whether you've done your homework, and all of these other factors and components. At the university admission, all of these factors are gone, and the only thing that counts is the actual test result. And so it can happen that students who did quite well in school, because they compensated their test results with classroom participation, all of a sudden drop down at university concerning the grade point average. And this is something that can cause quite a bit of frustration to the students because they do not understand why this is the case. But I just wanted to clarify here is make sure that you understand very well what you're being given the grade for, so that those surprises don't have too much of a negative impact on you. So these were 5 points that I basically came up with over the last couple of years of collecting and ideas and talking to many students. But if you have any additional comments, please do comment, write a comment in the comment section below. And also, if you think that these type of videos are useful for you to help you and to guide you in your studying and learning process, then please also consider subscribing. I wish you all the best and have a nice day. Bye bye.